Hello, I'm Dr. Barry, super excited to be here. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about healing toxic families, healing within toxic relationships. I did a series over on TikTok, and really it was based on questions that people asked. So people were asking questions about family systems, the different roles that people can play within dysfunctional family systems. And I always want to start these videos off with there is a line between toxic and then abusive. And I'll make sure to link over here a website, findhelp.org. There's a great website, findhelp.org, because if something is not safe, because there's a difference between something being toxic and then there being an unsafe environment. And we'll get into my frustrations with emotional abuse a little bit later and some of the definitions and things, because a lot of our practice is way ahead of some of our courts. And there are a lot of times where parents have difficulty finding safety for their kids within just toxic systems. But there's a difference because between a parent just not really making a good choice, not making good decisions, and then something being legally within your state, within your country, being defined as abusive. And so, I do want to talk first about some tips about co-parenting with an ex. And when you're looking to co-parent with someone, one of the most important things is not talking negatively about the other person in front of your kids. And in working to co-parent with the other person, focusing on your child. And if there are things that are coming up that are reminding you of your relationship with that person, or there are times where I so want to shield my child from anything when there's going to be disappointment, unfortunately. And as one of the parents, it can be really hard to help your child through those things. And so that's where I think sometimes the parent having their own individual therapist can sometimes be helpful. And then sometimes you do need a good individual and family therapist for the child as well that can help if there are questions and things that come up along the way on this topic. But making sure to not react to your ex. There is a technique, and I talked about it over on TikTok. There's a technique called Grayrock, where there will be times where I have seen, based on just things that I've gotten back from families, that it seems like an ex is trying to continue to control or manipulate through the children. They're trying to use the children to then upset the other parent. And so let's say drop off is supposed to be 6 p.m and kids are dropped off later. That is where you document. You document whatever's happening. You figure those things out. But I wouldn't go off on the other person about that, because sometimes those things are done with the intention of, hey, now I'm going to ruin the rest of your day, which is really immature and problematic. But it m it might not a court might not get involved for, hey, if the person is consistently dropping off the child late. And so that's where, as a parent, what I can do is know, okay, let me just plan that when the children get dropped off, maybe they haven't eaten yet, maybe they haven't done their homework. And so that is where you want to make sure to meet their basic needs first. And so if the kids come out and it's like, hey, anybody hungry? How are y'all doing? Did y'all already have dinner? Nope, we didn't have dinner. Okay, all right, here. I already have something. There are some leftovers from the other day. Y'all can I'll help y'all do that, or if the kids are old enough to do that on their own. But for me to not be like, oh, I can't believe he didn't. And now it's normal for me to feel that way. Okay, so it's okay that I feel that that comes up, but I don't want the kids to see that, and I don't want to communicate that to the other person. I'm going to control what is within my house with what's going on here. But and I can ask, hey, if you could try to have them, if you could try to do these things, but I'm going to be prepared if the kids show up and they haven't eaten yet. Or I'm going to make sure that when I send my kids off, that they have snacks, that they have some things available to meet some of those basic needs while they're in the other household. Another thing that you want to do is you want to ask the kids about what went well with the visit. And you want to ask them, so what did you like? What went well? And because what can happen is, as the parent, is I can be in this survival brain where I'm only looking for the bad, where I'm trying to get, okay, I'm just going to get all these things, and hearing all the bad stuff that can really hurt. And I want to normalize for my child that it's okay if you had a good time. Like, I want you to have a good time. I want you to be happy. Like, it is great if you had a good time. So I want to ask, okay, so what went well over there? And I want to do that. I, as a therapist, I have sometimes met with kids the day after a visit, or sometimes I meet with them before a visit, just to help prepare. And we talk about any concerns. We sometimes process afterwards. And as a therapist, I am doing the exact same thing. Hey, so what went well? Anything that didn't go so well? And there are some things that are just annoying and just like, oh, I can't believe this person didn't do these things. And that's what I see more often in my office. And there have been times where, as a therapist, I was concerned about a parent being overly critical, or possibly both parents being overly critical. I was concerned about possible emotional abuse, which is extremely difficult to prove, unfortunately, because so with physical abuse, that's something that can be seen. With other things, there are ways to get physical evidence for those things. The emotional abuse piece, that's the part that, as a therapist, I've been really frustrated with. But what I do is I communicate to the parents. Okay, so these are the types of communication patterns we want to have. These are the things that are considered emotional abuse. And then we talk about, okay, so within treatment with me, so I have it as a rule for treatment with me that parents agree to not use physical discipline. If a child is seeing me, that means there's a significant issue, and physical discipline often increases issues. And so that's where we set up some of those contracts and agreements. And I really try to avoid court if I can. Try to avoid it if I can. Unfortunately, parents sometimes do have to pay. And I got a great question about what is emotional abuse. And so every state defines that different. Um, but let me find a general one. And so a general definition would be non-physical behavior that belittles another person, can include insults, put downs, verbal threats to make the victim feel threatened, inferior, ashamed, or degraded. Within my state, I will say that often um, I've had difficulty with anybody doing anything unless it got to the point of the child wanting to harm themselves, unfortunately, unless there was a therapist saying that it was causing significant emotional, to the point of where we have, it's causing hospitalizations, like unless we were able to prove it in this very direct way. I've had some difficulty getting people to do anything about that. And what I instead have seen is people will say, oh, we'll get the person anger management, or they'll have to do a parenting course, or they'll have to do these other things to try to mitigate it. And some things don't change in a big way. And so that's where I actually have helped some of the kids that I work with in managing their parent. So I've had kids that were being very understandably, like when the parent would start to insult and do those things, the child would get very reactive and would start to have some very big behaviors. And so we started to work on how they could protect themselves, to not be in those situations, to not have those things happen, and to sometimes, hey, not to give that response. There was that technique I mentioned earlier called Grayrock, where you don't react, you don't give a reaction. And it's meant to say, okay, and they'll just kind of move on. And I've seen things like that be effective. Every situation is different, and that's where people have to partner with their own individual person to see what is going to work best for them. Because every situation is so unique. And a lot of this spilled out of a video that talked about how if if a relationship is toxic, if my marriage is, if my partnership, if the parents are in a high conflict situation and they're not working on that, the conflict remains high. The kids are seeing it, the kids know it. I've had kids come into my office and they know, like, they're hearing everything, they are seeing everything. And what ends up happening is that ends up becoming their their normal, which is why I often encourage, hey, if y'all can't be safe, if y'all can't agree to do this together, we might, y'all might need to consider what your other options are. And please know that as a psychologist, as a therapist, they've done research, and that often kids will do better if there is at least one household that is, and it won't be perfect. And I might have misspoke because I think I said the word undo in a video, but it was in response to a specific question. And I might have said something to the effect of that staying, that one parent can't undo what the other parent is doing. And even within two separate homes, you can't undo that. But you can at least give it opportunity for some safety, where the brain can kind of settle. So this, a lot of this is brain science. And make sure to check out, I'm sure here on YouTube, and I'm sure there are lawyers that can give tips and advice for how do you handle it if you do have certain concerns. Because that's where, as a therapist, my advice can only go so far. And then people are often partnering and talking with their lawyer about, hey, within our county, within our city, what is typically feasible? What are some of the options? It's kind of unfortunate, but sometimes it can vary based on the judge that you end up getting. Do you think intimate partner relationships can heal after abuse? And so, but I think if the person works on it. So I have heard of situations of the person possibly stopping using a substance. So I've seen where people have actually done the work. Maybe it is maybe the person has significant trauma, which is does not excuse anything, but it kind of helps me understand if they're willing to 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 do their work. That can be really helpful. And so being able to create safety, and that felt safety. So I can think that, hey, this is safe. But if I, as the parent, and I'm thinking that I'm the healthier one, but I'm yelling and screaming at the kids, because often, and it came up over on TikTok, that often kids will have more behaviors in the home that might be more peaceful than in the other home. And what's happened is sometimes these kids have grown up knowing chaos. Maybe they were walking on eggshells around the other parent. And it takes time for things to resettle. And that's where I think partnering with so everybody if that's my thing. I'm big on people connecting with the right therapist, but being able to partner and then address some of those deeper things. Because I've worked with a lot of people where a child, so the abusive parent might be out of the home, but then one of the children starts doing similar things. And this dysfunctional pattern continues. And so I do think you have to disrupt that pattern, and there have to be some changes. And let's say I experienced some things with the parent, and now I'm experiencing the same thing from my child. Well, now I need to go and work on that so that I can respond as a parent and not react to my child as though they are this other parent. And so avoiding saying things like, you're doing things just like that other parent, or you're doing things, making sure that being very careful that you're responding to things and not reacting in those more emotional states. Let me pull up my notes because we talked about meeting those basic needs, not reacting, documenting the things that you need to, asking the kids about what went well, and making sure to get them into therapy. Now, within certain states, both parents have to agree on the therapist, which can create extra problems because maybe because I've had that happen where the parents couldn't agree, and so I wasn't able to either start therapy or continue therapy because within my state, the parents had to agree. It doesn't matter who had legal custody or who had physical custody within my state of Virginia. The parents, both parents, had to be on board with the service provider. And so that is where I am careful with my interaction with the other parent. Maybe the parent that I document my interactions, but I am careful because sometimes something I say or do could then get but I do my job, but I'm just careful in how I navigate certain things. I once had someone say, "Hey, can you help mediate this?" And really, it was more of something that they should have went outside of me to get mediated, and I could see there being a problem down the road if I had stepped in on that situation. And so making sure and we talked about not speaking negatively about them in front of the other child, and there is something called parallel parenting, and so make sure to take a look at that. Parallel parenting is where, let's say, I'm there's a the other person, I consider them to be toxic, and but it's not unsafe, but it's not particularly helpful. The kids come back all riled up. We can't agree, like we're both trying to agree on certain things, but we can't, because what works best for co-parenting is if there are similar rules between houses, if there are similar expectations between houses, if we as parents can come together and have similar consequences, and if we can do that, that's really helpful for the long term. Like if that can work, there are some situations where that is not going to happen, and so that's where we have to parallel and say, hey, what happens in my house, what happens in your house, as long as it's not unsafe. So let's say the kids don't have a bedtime and it's a school night, they're going to school tired. That is where the school is going to communicate with that other parent about those concerns. I'm going to document once again, but taking some, because I can't control everything. And when I try to control everything, I am stressing myself, I'm stressing the kids, and it's not going to particularly work. And there are co-parenting apps. There are now apps out because sometimes that other person starts to message at all times of the night and they're doing all these other things, and there are some strategies in place, and I've worked with some people that got that put in a court order where the only communication was happening through this third party app, or that they set up certain things to create safety where there was an agreed upon person for transitions, and with transitions after visits, try to not have, because we talked about making sure to meet those basic needs. I also want to make sure that it's a calm, relaxing environment. And I might communicate with the school because maybe we're on a new schedule. This is a newer situation. And we're really, and the kids have been struggling with some of these adjustments. And they come home, they're brought home at like 8 p.m. and they haven't done any homework. So I might communicate with the school, hey, these are some of the things happening. Is there a way I can get the homework that's due on Friday? Is there a way for me to get that in on Monday? Like, I might be able to work some things out so that all we have to do is just, all right, transition back to this house. All right, we're transitioning back. And I really like when families post the in this house, where they have their family expectations, where, hey, within this house, we don't yell and scream at each other. I'm not going to yell and scream at you. You don't. What do we define as respect within this house? What are some expectations? How would you like to be treated? How do you want to treat other people? And I think having these conversations all together, and I've had these conversations with kids as young as 5, being included in that, and then posting those, and then we can remind one another of, hey, oh, that's number 2. Because let's say my child comes home and they're kind of riled up, so maybe they need to go, maybe we can go for a walk together. Maybe we can find a healthy way for them to get that energy out and for them to settle. Maybe they come home on a whole bunch of sugar. So maybe I take a look at, hey, okay, so I'm doing more of doing some proteins, or doing some, or I can figure out, okay, how can I adjust what I do have control over within my home? How can we just help things settle? And then me just understanding. So I still have expectations, but it's like, I might give a few more. I might just understand that before a visit and after a visit, that those are transitions, and they might struggle a little bit more during those times, and finding ways to encourage and support. Maybe there's a transition object. I'm a big fan of transition objects, where maybe they're taking the special teddy bear between houses. And if I have issues with the thing coming back to my house, then okay, we have one for that house and then we keep one here. And because I've had some people have difficulty getting things back from the other home. Acknowledging and accepting kids' point of view, listen without yes, and then also not reacting to whatever they're saying. So somebody over on TikTok said, acknowledging and accepting the kid's point of view, listen without adding in buts, and also not excusing the other person's behavior. So not trying, and that's where I think a therapist can be this neutral person where it's like, my clients can tell me whatever and it doesn't change my opinion of their other person. As long as it's not anything, but it doesn't change my ability to work with that other person. I do give clients that I work with choice about whether or not they would like, who they would like in treatment and who they don't want in treatment, unless there's a legal requirement where they're like court ordered to family therapy or something. But yes, and so I think not reacting. Um, and then I think this is a good time to talk about manipulation. So the kids trying to play the houses against each other. I don't like the word manipulation. I'm a big fan of saying that sometimes kids will try to get their needs met in inappropriate ways. And in trying to get that need met, they might tell one parent one thing and tell another parent another thing. And if I can have communication with the other person, communication can help. If I can't have communication with that other person, that's where it's just once again working on that safety. One of the parents might also be modeling behaviors that I don't want the child to repeat, um, but a piece of that might be out of my control. And so it's being able to accept, this is what is in my control, this is what is not in my control. The child all of a sudden starts having issues with a lot of lying and sneaking around and keeping things. And so that's where I do think being able to have these conversations in a way that's not why. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? I mentioned that a little bit earlier today, saying that often saying, hey, so what was going on? Help me understand. That can often help you get more accurate information sometimes than saying things other ways. And if I start to have those concerns, that's where making sure that there is this other party. So that's where a therapist, a coach, teachers, that there are these other supports that can be around the family, to help during those more difficult times. There are also times where siblings are unsafe with one another, where siblings are doing toxic things with one another. And so let's start with tattling. And so I like to explain to kids and parents, there's a difference between reporting and tattling. And tattling is, ooh, this is what so and so did. Ooh, you won't believe. Tattling is, I'm all happy that my sibling is going to get in trouble. Reporting is, hey, I saw this. This is concerning, and you need to know this. And so reporting is reporting unsafe behavior, reporting something that's not right, versus saying, oh, they got 10 extra minutes on the TV and they're not supposed to. That mom said to turn off the TV and they didn't. Because it's very common for me to see within some of these families that are healing some of these toxic situations, for a child to be in one of the parent roles where they're relating to their siblings more like a parent than a child. And being able to say, like, hey, that's mom's job. Okay, your siblings making a choice. And so, because that can really hurt the dynamic between the siblings if there's all this tattling. And it's annoying to parents. It is really, really annoying to the parents as well. And so, being able to step back. Creating safety within the home is incredibly important. And depending on the resources that you have, some families are eligible for home based therapy. And what home based therapy does is sometimes people can come to my office and kind of keep it together. And that's why I like telehealth too, because there have been times when I've done telehealth with families that I couldn't do home based services with, have a home counselor come out to the house. But I heard parents yelling and screaming in the background. I heard things happening that it's like, oh, okay, we need to work on this. Okay, I need to have a conversation with them. And sometimes people will say, hey, within our culture, within our family, we just speak very loud. But they have a very anxious child that's interpreting that tone of voice as meaning that someone is upset, or someone, or that this is going on. And so that's where I've seen some of that stress level in the home come down when we do decide to not raise our voice above here, or to do some of these things. Um, monitor as best you can, and supervision. So if my kids keep having these fights one on one, like there's a lot of physical aggression, no matter their age, I might not be able to leave them together without an adult being there, without there being some type of supervision, or there being, sometimes families are able to put cameras if they're able to do that in common areas, or let's say right off the kitchen is an open area. If I have younger kids, making sure that they're playing where I can see them. And as I see things kind of start to escalate, being able to step in before it gets to the point where something is unsafe. I've worked with families that where a child went off for treatment. And there were some pretty significant issues within the home. And then we had to talk about how we reintegrate that person within the family, post treatment, talking about what they've learned. There were other family members that remembered, hey, there were some pretty significant things that happened before that person did treatment. And so sometimes we would have family sessions and sit down and talk about how to create safety. How do we make sure that people feel safe, seen, and heard? Um, and so make sure to check out some of the other tools and resources and things that are on adoptive and for adoptive and foster families, because that adds an additional step within things. We can't hurt ourselves or others, so I can't trust you not. Uh-oh, I think I missed something, Lauren. Hello, Mr. Social Worker. Welcome, welcome. But I do think that their healing is possible. I think we have to change things that we're doing, and we have to destigmatize mental health. So just because a child might benefit from therapy, the parent might need, hey, they also might have some, this situation affects them too. And co-parenting long term with somebody that continues to kind of be toxic, I've seen people benefit, the parent benefit from therapy too, because when the parent is more settled, it's easier to settle the kids, or it's easier to kind of see. But almost every time from what I've seen, if the parent is dealing with significant depression, dealing with significant anger, dealing with significant anxiety, the kids are going to pick up on that, and we're going to see more behaviors. And so, being able to put your mask on first. I did a talk earlier today talking about travel safety. And on an airplane, that is why they say put your mask on first. And you came out of the situation too, and you have to take care of you. And one of those things might be doing some therapy, checking out some tools and resources. And I'll be sure to upload a short here that talked about some different books and things that people have found helpful. All right. So I hope you'll have a good rest of your day. If you have more questions that you would like for me to address, you can feel free to put them down in the comments. I can't respond to specific situations, but I can give general tips and advice. Hope you have a great day.